Hello and welcome to Jurisedge Academy's YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to talk about probable passages that can be asked in CLAT PG 2022 examination. We have based this video on the analysis of recent judgments and recent events from different areas of law. And this is why we feel that because of the fact that there have been so many important developments in certain areas, they are more likely to be asked in the CLAT PG 2022 examination, which is scheduled to be held in June 2022. So firstly, the issue is how to identify important areas for passages. Now you of course cannot predict the exact passage or the exact portion of a judgment that will be asked. That is quite impossible to do. But what you can do is you can make a very reasonable understanding based on the case laws that have come recently and the important things that have been an issue to kind of understand as to from different subjects which areas are important in them. So based on this understanding, we are now going to focus on the analysis of recent judgments and legal events and simplify it for you as to which areas you should particularly focus on in various subjects. So let's start this video. In this part 1 of the video, we'll be talking about 4 important areas, and then in the next part we'll cover the rest of them. So first we'll start with the Constitution. Now Constitution of course is the most important area that is tested in CLAT PG examination. Not only that, but it also has the most weightage. So if you analyze the last 2-year papers, you'll see that around 48 to 50 questions have only been asked from the Constitution. So it goes without saying that Constitution is extremely important, and so we need to finalize and understand as to what all areas can be tested in Constitution. So now based on recent judgments, reservation is something which is extremely important because you have so many important cases like the Maratha judgment, the NEET PG case, that is the Neil Aurelio Nunes case, then you have the Vanyar community case, then you have Jarnail Singh. So there are a couple of important judgments on the issue of reservation, which makes it a very, very probable area to be asked. Next is constitutional amendments under Article 368 of the Constitution. Now the reason why this area has become important is because of the Rajendra N. Shah judgment, in which the Supreme Court has struck down a constitutional amendment relating to cooperative societies for the reason being that it does not follow the procedural requirements of Article 368. So this will again be an important area. Next we have parliamentary privileges, in which we do have some significant judgments. For example, we have the case of Ashish Shelar versus State of Maharashtra Legislative Assembly, which is a very, very important case that has to be read. Then we have judicial appointments. However, judicial appointments is something which is a very vast topic and it has also been asked previously. But in light of vacancies in high courts and the Supreme Court's guidelines in the Lok Prahari judgment, judicial appointments in high courts also becomes extremely important. Next we have power of pardon. Although Article 72 and 161 are not discussed in this area very extensively, however, it is important to go through those subjects because of the recent exercise of grant of pardon by the Supreme Court under Article 142 of the Constitution. So revising your basics on power of pardon of the President and the Governor will also be important. Lastly, you need to understand Article 142 and its usage by the Supreme Court very frequently in granting various reliefs in various judgments. Next we come to the topic of criminal law. So now in criminal law, as you all know, that it is very vast because you have to read the IPC, the CRPC and the evidence law. So it may become very, very difficult to cover all of that in the last 1 month of your preparation. So you should definitely focus on these particular areas in which there have been important judgments. So the issue of marital rape is very important. So is the decision of the Delhi High Court in the RIT Foundation case. So you need to go through that. Next is the issue of sedition. However, the Supreme Court's order on this issue is very brief, but you need to revise your basics of sedition and the landmark cases that have been there on this point. You can simultaneously also go through the judgment of Vinod Dua versus Union of India. Then we have joint liability because there are a lot of cases that usually come on Section 34 and Section 149. Then you have the inherent powers of the High Court under Section 482 of CRPC, which is again a subject matter of a lot of important judgments on criminal law. Then you have dying declaration under Section 32 of Evidence Act. And lastly, you have some cases on Section 498A of IPC. Bail has already been asked in last year's paper, so the chances of that being repeated are very less. However, you should definitely go through the BARE Act provisions with respect to bail as well. Before we move on to the next area on important passages, let's quickly take a quick announcement. So we are launching AILET PG mock test series. Since you know that AILET PG has changed their patterns and now they're also going to test questions on English and legal reasoning. Additionally, there'll also be a subjective portion. So because of that, we are launching a mock test series which will have 10 mock tests based on the changed pattern of AILET PG. It will of course include questions on English and legal reasoning. It will have unlimited attempts and a detailed analysis with solutions will also be provided. Additionally, you can also check out our CLAT PG 2022 mock tests which are available, and you can check them out from the link given in the description box. Next, we come to the issue of family law. Now, family law is also an area which is very constantly tested in CLAT PG examination. So, family law is something from which you can expect a few cases. In family law, even though the concepts are very important because they may ask you conceptual questions as well, which may or may not be related with recent judgments, but these areas are something which are which pop up in the news very often. So, the issue of restitution of conjugal rights, irretrievable breakdown of marriage, mutual consent divorce, and particularly succession rules for Hindu females are very important in family law to cover. Lastly, we are going to cover a public international law. Now, public international law is also something which is asked very frequently in the CLAT PG examination. So now, taking into account the recent developments that have happened in this area, state recognition will be very important. You will need to have clarity on de facto and de jure recognition in light of the Taliban takeover of the state of Afghanistan. Then of course you need to have the understanding of use of force or the law relating to war in light of Russia-Ukraine conflict. Next, you need to have some basic understanding of intellectual property protection, because in light of the vaccines, it has become increasingly important to understand the role of intellectual property in this. And lastly, you also need to read particularly about jurisdiction of international courts, because on two separate occasions this issue has also come in the news. One in light of Danish Siddiqui's parents going to the ICC for suing Afghanistan for the death of their son. And secondly, it has also come up in the case of Russia versus Ukraine conflict. So these four are very important and recent areas that can be tested under public international law. This brings us to the end of our video. We'll be releasing a part 2 next week. So tune in to understand the important areas in the remaining subjects as well. If you like this video, please like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.